Scorpio 23, a bunny metamorphosed into a fairy. This is an image, I think, of a child imagining a bunny rabbit changing into something mystical and spiritual and stuff. And it's all about what we do with our imagination. The imagination is an aspect of mind, and it includes the linguistic kind of indicator of being magical. And magical, in this sense, can be described as that which creates a special atmosphere in which we can create what we choose. And imagination does that. If we imagine something full on and passionately, then the body doesn't know the difference between what is happening and what we're imagining. And as a body sensation is all the access we have to reality. In one sense, imagination and reality are pretty much the same thing from that perspective of body, as long as we do it properly. And I'm reminded of a teaching that my mother used to give me if I was looking for my football boots. She would say, "Seek and ye shall find." And I knew it was a biblical expression, and I was trained to believe that that's what it meant. That if you wanted to find your football boots, you had to look for them. But that's not what it means. Seek and ye shall find. It doesn't mean that if you want to find something, you have to look for it. It's just not necessary to teach that. It's just so obvious. The teaching is much more subtle. The teaching is you will find what you're looking for. Not you have to look for what you want to find. You will find what you're looking for. That's a much better way of actually understanding this phrase. And here we have an exact example. What I'm doing with that phrase is using my imagination to rework it, so that the phrase itself, seek and ye shall find, takes on profundity of meaning. So I'm imagining that the words were supposed to be written slightly differently and the original interpretation was not spot on. I'm imagining that what Jesus meant was, whatever it is you look for is what you find. So here I'm looking for profundity of meaning in these words. Therefore, I found them. Whereas what my mum was looking for is some quick and easy way to reinterpret the message of God so that she didn't have to bother to actually change the way her life was going. What was the other one she used to use? Cleanliness is next to godliness. I never understood that one. Since the most godly I ever felt was playing football or rugby or nowadays in the garden. And I'm covered in mud. I'm dirty all the time, and it's just like, yeah, there's where I find God. So I never quite understood cleanliness is next to godliness. We look for what we want to find, and we see what we have looked for. And this is of crucial importance in our spiritual quest, because we have been trained to look for the wrong things. We've been trained to look for negativity, for fear, for obstacles, for impenetrable power of authority. We've been trained to see those wherever we look. And they're just not there. They've been planted there in the imagination, but they're not real. And this is so profoundly wrong that any real attempt by great spiritual masters to teach the way it really is pretty much falls on deaf ears for the most part. And people would do as my mother did. They'll interpret the words of these great masters just to fit in with their lives, so that they don't have to change very much. But we do have to change. We have to change a lot, individually and collectively. And we we learn how to change what we are experiencing in our lives. And that experience is not only limited to the events and the encounters that we have, the people, but mostly, really, we have to focus on the inner experience. How do we feel about what's happening? This aspect of our definite reality, how we feel, speaks to us more authentically of the soul and the soul's response to where we are in life than thoughts or circumstances. How do we feel about what's happening? Now, then the teaching, Seek and ye shall find, takes on a special importance, because even though we may not yet have learned how to change outer circumstances in our lives very eloquently or quickly or elegantly, I should have said, nevertheless, we can do that with our feelings. I know this is controversial. Most people think it's not true, but they haven't learned how. You can learn how to change your feelings. There's two really, really obvious ways to change your feelings. If you're not feeling very good about someone or something that's happened or whatever, just change the feelings. And then the circumstances will have to align with that one way or another. And we change our feelings by various techniques, but let me just give you two. One is go for a walk. Just get out of the house. Put yourself into physical mode. Do hard work with your physical body. That'll change your feelings. And if you want to do it on a more refined level, then just learn how to breathe. Just learn how to breathe in a meditative way. Slow and deep. And it is true you'll forget and you'll come out into this busyness of the world and interpret everything negatively sometimes. But when you remember, you can just return to the breath, and because you've practiced and learned how to do that, how to return to the breath, you'll find it's always there. And this will take you through anything that happens, anything at all. Now, the workings of imagination require us to recreate our perceptions. It's simply put as seeing the glass half full instead of half empty, to turn everything around so that we see the silver lining around a dark cloud. And it's always there. Things are never what they seem. A traditional story of a farmer, it's taught in Zen, but I'm not sure if that's its origins. A farmer loses a horse and a neighbour says, "Oh, dear, I'm sorry you've lost your horse. That's bad news." And the farmer says, "Well, maybe." And the horse comes back with 3 wild horses with it. And the neighbour said, "Oh, great luck, good fortune, congratulations." And the farmer shrugs his shoulders, "Well, maybe." And then one of these wild horses breaks his son's leg as the son is trying to tame the horse. "Oh, what great misfortune you're suffering, farmer." Maybe." And then the military comes along and tries to conscript all the boys in the village. But they can't take our boy because he's got a broken leg. Things just move around and around and around, and what appears like bad luck is great good fortune. What appears like great good fortune turns to be a source of misery. This is how life is. However, if you have trained yourself to perceive everything that happens as, well, first of all, maybe, don't attach yourself to any particular outcome and have this Zen approach of detachment to life. That protects you from disappointments and false optimism and so on. It's really useful. But that's not exactly the point of this teaching, is it? The point of this teaching is that in any particular moment, in any particular event, every occurrence that happens can be turned around, every single one of them, so that you feel good about it. And if your life is falling apart and you've lost everything you've ever worked for, your career, your marriage, your wealth, your health even, it must seem very dire, very depressed, very depressing. But that's only how it seems. It isn't that way, because nothing is permanent. And if you want to move it in your direction, to change how things are, to how things would you'd like them to be, it's a question of shifting your perception first and foremost, to turn a problem into an opportunity, to turn bad news into the potential for good news, to just turn everything around so that you can see the benefit. And as soon as you can see the benefit, then you are focusing on the light. You are seeking the light. So you will find the light.